Welcome to Crafts and Minis. It's been almost 2 years since my last video, and if you've been a subscriber for my whole time or just subscribed while I wasn't making videos, I would want to thank you for sticking around. But I'm back. I've been doing the hashtag hobby streak challenge where you do just a little bit of the hobby each day. And I've been taking a picture each day of my works in progress and posting those on Twitter. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, that'd be awesome. But just know, I appreciate all the positive comments and all the encouragement I was receiving during my time away. And I just thought, what's the better way to say thank you than to share some hobby with you and hopefully give you a little inspiration and get you motivated to get after your hobby yourself. So this week, 69 miniatures painted. It's ridiculous. This is not a normal week. I started the hashtag hobby streak challenge all fired up. And the only way I was able to get this done is because I had all of these miniatures already primed and based and ready to be painted. I've actually moved since my last videos, and so all these were in boxes of some sort, and as I open up the boxes, it's like finding new treasures. I love that about finding your old minis. So this is what I've been working on this week, and I want to just go through and show you each miniature to hopefully give you a little bit of inspiration. So this week, the first miniature I painted is this Frost Giant. Now, this is a Reaper Bones miniature, and what's unique about the way I painted it is that I used an oil wash. So if you've been watching a bunch of painting videos on YouTube, you know that a lot of miniature painters are using oil washes. So you use oil paint thinned down with mineral spirits, and then you put it on the model, and then it goes everywhere, right? So it's kind of messy. It goes everywhere. But then you use like a Q-tip, or I used a makeup sponge to wipe off the model in the elevated areas, and so the wash stays just in the recesses, and it comes out really looking nice. So I was really pleased with this. I like how the metals actually turned out. I did just a little bit of highlighting on the blade of the axe, you can see there, afterwards, but otherwise this is left as is after the oil wash. So that was awesome. But then that gave me the bug. Once I painted one mini, I'm like, you know, you got to keep getting after it. So I was getting after the rest of these minis. We'll just go around from right to left. So here's a Wyvern from Reaper. Again, a Reaper Bones mini. I just picked this up because I'm like, oh, well, that's not too big. And I was practicing my scales painting because on dragons and creatures like the dragons like this, I wanted to really practice picking out those scales. So even just something small like that, it takes a lot of repetition to paint, but it's totally worth it for the final outcome. But it also is the only thing I really had to invest time in on this model. So the rest of the model, I didn't really invest time in, but it looks okay. And it's on a 2-inch fender washer. Remember, those metal fender washers are great. And I love what the heft they give to like Reaper Bones miniatures. Okay, so then after the giant, actually, I think the next thing I painted were 12 of these. So these are interesting. The bodies are from WizKids, I think in the Deep Cuts line or the Nolzur's Miniatures line, you know, of their pre-primed plastic miniatures that they put out there that I know the monsters have been going up in cost, which is ridiculous. It used to be that you could get a beholder for like $5. Now they're like $9 US, I think. But the cool thing I did with these is I switched all their heads out. So I swapped all the heads to have cultist heads from the Frostgrave line. And I did a video before on the Frostgrave miniatures. It's an incredible line. And so I wanted to do something unique for these miniatures, and I thought switching out their heads with these Frostgrave cultists would be cool. And these guys all have purple hoods because I have like a theme going that I realized that like I have a bunch of different cultists for this like big monster that's a fiery purple skull that I've shown in a video before. And I don't know, I'm kind of coming up with this theme of this cult wears purple. That's as far as I've gotten so far, but it's all good. You know I love toys for the tabletop. So I painted 2 of these little ones. They were actually almost painted and done since my big break started from the miniature painting. But these are little toys that came, I think, with like Schleich, or however you pronounce it, the toy company that produces like dragons and all sorts of farm animals and stuff too, but I like the dragons and mythical creatures. And this is just a little guy, but I thought it'd be cool, like a dire rat, you know, that just looks awesome. Okay, then I also painted this, which I'm really proud of. So this was originally a body for a Troll Blood miniature from Privateer Press in their Hordes line. And it's a metal mini. But then I gave it a head swap from an old GW, Games Workshop, Demon Prince. And I thought it looked pretty cool. I mean, it's an oversized head for the body, but it works. And this is just going to be, you know, some monster caster of some sort. Magic wielder, yes. Speaking of magic wielders, I got a green one. So here's a green magic wielder. I don't know where this sculpt is from, and I'm sorry I can't share that with you because I just don't know. But this was fun to practice, just highlighting on robes. And, you know, I've been getting away from just doing my quick and dirty wash with my Vallejo big tub of wash on every miniature. So this miniature didn't get treatment like that, but I still think it came out okay. And I'm really proud of the scroll, because it looks kind of scrolly, which is fun. A little bit of writing on it. So, yeah, he was a fun magic user to paint. I also did 2 old school Games Workshop spiders. So these used to be for the spider riders, the goblins that would ride spiders for Warhammer. And the sculpt actually had a hole on top of its head where you would put the peg from the rider in there, so the rider would just be able to fit nicely on the spider. Well, I just did a little green stuff cap on both of these spiders, and worked out really well. So those were fun. And those were already pre-worked on from the time before my break. So you can see, like, for some of this update, I was just finishing up some stuff that was already like primed and partially painted before I took my little break. Okay, next. Dragons last, remember that. Next, let's talk about this guy. Toys for the tabletop. This is why you go down toy aisles and see what is there. This was a toy, I want to say it was a King Kong toy from one of the recent movies. Oh, my light just fell. But it's a great sculpt, and it's all one piece. Hold on just a second. It's all one piece. No articulated parts or anything like that, because, man, toys like that have movable arms and legs and knees and elbows and all of that are really difficult for the tabletop, because you want to somehow secure them in place, and you don't want them to move if they're going to be gaming miniatures. But this was just really nice because it was a one-piece sculpt, and I was really happy how it came out. I used, so after, you know, my prime style is black all over white from the top, that crazy zenithal priming. It worked out really well to do on this one, though, because then I used some wash from Secret Weapon, which actually I probably should talk about in a future video. There's the recipe that the original washes from Secret Weapon, I think, were based on from Les Burley, who came up with this recipe of how you make your own washes. And so I've done that. I used the recipe, and they make great washes. But this used like this light blue wash over the white and zenithal prime. And I thought that was really cool. And I'm just really proud of his eyes. So the eyes were cool. But that's a giant ape or gorilla, just a big old king of the jungle. Okay, here, let's point out these two real quick. Sorry about my lighting. My light totally just fell. And, you know, I do one take, and I haven't invested the time to learn how to edit well yet. So I'm sorry if the light's off. These are 2 Dwarf Blacksmith miniatures, and I painted them just slightly different, you know, but each one of these was only a 5-minute paint job, and I'm actually dead serious about that. And one thing I've been doing this week is really focusing on readability from arm's length. So how do you read a miniature from arm's length? How easy is it to tell what's going on the miniature? And that's why I have these crazy dark recesses in the musculature of the miniatures because, yeah, I just wanted them to be more readable from arm's length. And it doesn't look the best from way close up. But when you see it on the tabletop, you at least know what it is. And you can really see those muscles pop, which is kind of fun. Okay, let's do the giant next. Speaking of muscles, oh my goodness gracious. Okay, the reason I just said, oh my goodness gracious, is because this is an all-metal figure. This is the original giant that Reaper put out that was all metal. And now there's Reaper Bones versions of this, which I also have. I've got like 2 of those primed and ready to be painted too. I have no idea why I bought 3 of this same sculpt. But it is a really cool and massive giant. I love the little armor pieces. I love his expression on his face, which is really fun, and I'm proud of those eyes again as well. You know, I didn't just paint all my monster eyes red this time, which was kind of fun. And I was really practicing doing a darker skin tone with this model, and I think it worked out really well. I highlighted each one of those muscles with a brown, but then, you know, when you put like I was going to say Devlin Mud. Now it's Agrax Earthshade, and I don't know if it's still even called that from GW, but when you put that over your already highlighted muscles. Yeah, I did say muscles. Muscles. Then it just is a good time. It works out really well. And, you know, something to just consider is like, you know, how do you make clothes and stuff pop on a miniature when there really isn't much there? So he's all muscles and very little clothing. But that's where I wanted to make these kind of like fur. And so I did little short brush strokes around the edges here and on this to make it look like fur. So a little bit of texture. All these miniature painters always talk about texture in their miniatures. And I'm like, okay, if that just means little brush strokes, let's do it. Let's get after it. Okay, these are little, you know, lazy demons. I'm sure there's an actual name for them in D&D, but these were fun. So what's cool about this, these 11 of these are smaller. They're from Mage Knight, I believe. I rebased Mage Knight figures, the old line. But look at this one. It's slightly bigger, right? And the one on the left is an old metal figure. I don't know who made it, but obviously it was the same sculpt that Mage Knight used. So Mage Knight must have bought the license to use this sculpt in their game, but this is a much older metal figure on the left, and the one on the right, even though it's not that much smaller, it's just a tad smaller. So I have 11 small ones and 1 slightly larger one for those yellowish demons. And what was cool about those painted up quick too. I did my wash to start. I painted with like a GW contrast paint. I think it was like a Nurgle contrast paint. And then I highlighted with greenish yellow all of the miniatures. So that worked out really fun. Okay, these are some of my favorite sculpts. Well, conversions, I should say. This is a model from the board game from Cool Mini or Not, Besieged. And then I used an old, and I'm trying to collect these. I want more because I have more of this model. It's an old Games Workshop Warhammer dwarf head. So the heads of the original model for this game are like super small. So this head is actually bigger than the original one, even though it's kind of like small in comparison to the rest of the body. But you can tell I also did the dark shading in the crevices of the muscles on this one. And I just love it. These are going to be like a Hearthguard or something like that for a Dwarven King or something. I mean, they're big for dwarves, but I love them. You know how when you paint miniatures and you spend so much time looking at the same sculpt that you start to either really despise it and you want to just get it done, or you really start to love it. And that's what happened this week. With most of these sculpts, I just really started to love them, which has been awesome. Okay, dwarves. This sculpt is an old plastic old hammer, Warhammer, Games Workshop dwarf. Now, I added a shield from the Beastmen line for all these guys. And then the hand here with the sword is actually from the old Skaven line, where they had those monstrous Skaven hands on the sculpts, and they fit perfectly for these dwarves. So this one involved a little bit of chopping up, of putting Skaven hands on guys. I also did, besides the swords, I did the spears. I have 6 spears, and that again is a Skaven hand, just mounted on this dwarf mini. And then I also did 4 crossbowmen. And what's cool about these is not just the crossbow, but the quiver of arrows, of bolts, crossbow bolts on the back. That was really cool that I put on there. So these I all did just in green. They're going to be either mercenaries for hire or, you know, a dwarf retinue that's been sent out to go into the wide world and check things out. I don't know. They'll be fun. They look really cool. I love that sculpt. I'm actually doing a Kings of War army where I'm doing Abyssal Dwarves, and I have 160 of that sculpt to put shields onto that I'll do a future video on, hopefully, and show you what I'm using for shields, because it's kind of interesting. It's kind of old school. And yeah, I've got 160 of those to paint up eventually in a different color scheme, but oh my goodness, it is nuts. It is nuts. Okay, I want to show you my favorite sculpt of all time, and it's just because it's so versatile. I just really like the look of it, and it just hits me in the feels because it's kind of a classic sculpt from when I was a kid, and that's this. So I did 12 of these, and these are from Games Workshop, from Advanced Hero Quest. But Games Workshop also put out a board game that, if any of you know, the game Mighty Warriors, that had Skaven and these guys in it. That's where I got the original sculpts of these. And then I've been fortunate enough to find some secondhand online and stuff over the years. But I really love them. They're perfect for Town's Guard. They originally, I think, were called henchmen. They could be a caravan hands to protect the caravan. They can be all sorts of things. And I love, too, that they're not in, like, action poses, that they're just at the ready. And so they're just super versatile. You plop a few of these down on your D&D table, and your players don't know immediately whether they're friend or foe, and it's just really cool. And they're not, like, in the action pose ready to fight, so they work just great on the tabletop for so many things, which is really fun. There's also sculpts of those with pole arms, which I also have. I just haven't painted them up, but you'll see in a future video. Okay, Beholders, then Dragon. That's the order of the day. I had 2 Beholders base coated with a purple and a teal, and so nothing else was done on them, so I finished them up. And this is where I started getting into highlighting scales this week. So for this purple one, I highlighted with pink all the scales. All the scales. And then I might have done a little wash on it afterwards. I actually don't think I did. I think I highlighted the scales without doing a wash on it afterwards. But, you know, pink and teal, I thought, just complemented each other really well. So when it came to what color to do the eye, I thought, let's do it black and teal. And then all the little protruding scales and teeth I did in black. So I thought that looked really cool. These are from the Deep Cuts or Nolzur's Miniatures line from WizKids. They were $5, and I have a bunch of them from when they were $5. And now they're $9. I guess it's still worth it. It's a really cool model. The bane of my painting existence, though, is covering up these clear plastic parts to prime and then paint the model without getting any on there. And I did get some paint on there, so I'd had to scrape it off, and I haven't been able to totally scrape it all off, but those are just little painter problems. Okay, this one was fun, too. This was the teal-based one, and again, I highlighted every scale on this thing and highlighted the tops of the stalks, eye stalks, and it's just really fun. And the eye came out pretty well, so I was really pleased about that. So there's a couple Beholders. Beholders are great because you can paint them any color, and people will be like, "Oh, that's great, it's a Beholder." Because the lore for Beholders, the way I understand it, is that there's just numerous colors. They don't all look the same. They don't even all have the same physical structure and all of that. So beholders are great to test out different schemes on. All right. We're almost 20 minutes into this, and I haven't talked about the dragon yet. So the big red dragon in the back, I'm going to pull it closer, but I highlighted every scale on this one too. So it was really fun to do. This red dragon turned out, I thought, really well. There you go. There's a close look at that eye. Oh, the eyes turned out really good on this one. And I didn't want to just do red eyes on a red dragon, so those are my dragon eyes. But he has a purple tongue. But this is a Bones dragon from Reaper, and I don't know what it's called, but it's a Bones dragon from Reaper, and I love the complement of black and red. On the wings, too, for the black, I highlighted with coal black from the P3 Privateer Press paint line. I'm going to do a tour of my new painting space and game workshop. Why I can't call it a games workshop. My workshop. And it's going to show you like my P3 paints, and I got coat to arms that were made by the same manufacturer, so they go together really well. And these old Citadel paints that are made from the same manufacturer, so they all go together really well. And the bottles are still usable after 20 years and stuff, plus. For those old Games Workshop ones, those are like 30 years old, I think. But this guy was a lot of fun to paint. You just have to put your head down to the grind when you're painting scales and just enjoy the process. I know it just feels daunting, but just take it in little chunks. Like, okay, I'm going to do the shoulder. I'm going to do the neck. I'm going to do just the lower part of the back. And then just get after it. And after a while, you're like, you know, I'm looking for more scales to highlight because that was a lot of fun. But he looks good. All right. This was a longer video. Hopefully you didn't mind. I'm back at it. I don't want to make any promises of types of content necessarily, or like promises on regularity of videos. My hope, don't hold me to it, my hope is to do these each Monday, which would be awesome, just to show you a little bit of what I've been getting done in the hobby. But, you know, I took a long break, and breaks sometimes you know, are a great thing. But it took a little bit to get me motivated again to get after it. And for me, it was setting up my painting space and having a dedicated painting space again. That really allowed me to do it, so I could just sit down and get after it just a little bit at a time on these models. 69 miniatures in 1 week is not normal. I'm not expecting to have this output every week. And I'm going to have to start getting into my Kings of War armies too. So they might be a little different content than we're used to on the channel, but it's all fantasy, so it's all good. I also have some sci-fi stuff that I eventually want to get around to, but right now the Kings of War and just general fantasy bug has been biting me, so that's what I'm going to focus on. I hope you are doing awesome. It is Thanksgiving week here in the United States, and I'm grateful for each and every one of you for stopping by. Take some time to give thanks this week and go get after that hobby.